Okay, you can start.
Great. Thanks, and thanks for joining, everyone. Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, wherever you are. And for those celebrating Diwali, happy Diwali. Thanks for joining us on this session 5 of our specialized AI series, where we will deep dive on document understanding in Studio, UiPath Studio. So, just to kick it off, this will be our agenda for today, which will recap quickly what the past previous session is, what DU framework and its components are, what automations in document understanding is, um, DU in Studio Web, which is the web version of the IDE in UiPath. If you want to build simple processes quickly and efficiently, DU in Studio Desktop for medium to complex processes. We'll go through the specific use case that we'll be building in Studio Desktop. And then Q&A. Let's have some Q&A. Again, this is a session. This whole series is the main purpose is to prepare you in the specialized AI associate exam. And so interact with us as much as you can, and we'll answer to the best of our knowledge. We have a few folks in the chat here to cater your questions. Okay, just a quick intro. I'm Russell Alfeche, leading the technology delivery services in Cubotica for AI and automation services that we provide to our customers. And I also have Mason here. Mason, you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Mason. I'm actually with UiPath now. I was at Annika Systems as an intelligent automation lead with the IRS, but now I'm a technical account manager with UiPath. I've been a UiPath MVP for 4 years. So.
Also, sorry, I wasn't able to update, but
Oh,
yeah.
no, you're fine.
Great to have you here, Mason. So, Chris, I think he's having some issues, so he's not able to join. So, but yeah, he's also an MVP. So let's kick off with a quick recap of what we had last week with regards to document understanding framework and its components, right? If you joined that call last week, so they have covered what DU is and what's the framework that they're using in developing this for production or enterprise grade deployments and use cases, right? You can think of it as RE framework if you're familiar with robotic enterprise framework, with all the exception handling, with all the fetching mechanism and processing mechanism. All that is built in place within this particular framework, and you can use it as a template in Studio, right? But the core of it is this, what you see here, where you have the ingestion, the inflow, and then going to digitize, to essentially make the document, right, machine readable, right? So from whether it's scanned or digital PDF document, you ingest it, then digitize, then on that digitized data, it can be classified using activities in UiPath to whether it's a intelligent keyword classifier or ML classifier, and then depending on the classification, let's say it's an invoice or purchase order or receipts, then it will go to either extraction or validation, right? Validate, because sometimes the document is not the best quality, especially if it has handwritten values, right? So there's the validation piece here. And then there's a retraining mechanism depending if what kind of classifier that you're using, right? If it's ML based classifier, then definitely you can retrain those ML classifiers. If it's able to classify properly, then it will proceed to extraction depending on the document type that you have, right? Again, in extraction, you have different ways or approach to do the extraction, whether it's rule-based approach for structured document, let's say forms, fixed forms, you can build an extractor uh, to extract on specific coordinates or specific positions. In fact, it was position-based extractor, it was called before. For semi-structured to unstructured type of document, you have machine learning-based extractors, which we will show you in this um, session, where focus is on AI based extraction for DU, right? Then again, there is a validation piece here if needed, and retraining as well, right? So once extraction is complete, then the downstream process will take place using the extracted schema or data or metadata from the upstream flow, right? So all of this are fully customizable, but there are pre-trained model that you can already use within AI Center or Document Understanding, which is pretty neat. You don't have to train model from scratch. There are around 50 plus different document types that you can already use for classification and extraction, which we will show you in a few seconds, in a few minutes. Now, now that we have that established, right? So when it comes to document understanding, there are two ways you can leverage this package within UiPath IDE, UiPath Studio, right? So it's either you use the intelligent OCR activities package or the document understanding activities package. So what's the difference between these two, right? So for intelligent OCR activities package, so this is the, let's say, the this is the, let's say, the classic, but also this is the they are more like you have a suite of activities, more activities that you can leverage here if you use the intelligent OCR activities. And in fact, this is the one that's being used in this DU framework template that I showed you right here, right? This is the one that's been there since they've started releasing document understanding, right? So that's intelligent OCR activities package, right? So it can be deployed in any type of a deployment, whether you're in cloud, automation suite, or standalone, right? So as I said, it's been there since the start. So it supports standalone deployment in AI Center, right? And best suited for RPA developers because they are the more experienced, can tackle from simple to medium to high complexity type of document understanding use cases. And it's the most flexible, right? If you notice here, for each and every step of the framework, you can customize it. You have different type of digitizers, different type of classifiers and extractors or whatnot. So this is the most flexible. You can mix extraction, classification. You can combine rule-based extraction and AI-based extraction, and extensible and open framework. You can even bring your own classifier or extractor, right? And use that within UiPath Studio, right? So this is the more advanced type of package for medium to complex type of DU use cases, so that you use the whole DU frameworks, DU framework, right? As you can see here, it can be used in the DU process template in UiPath, right? So the document understanding package, which Mason will demo in a few minutes. So this is only available through Automation Cloud and Automation Suite deployment. Um, so what deployment means here are the models specifically, right? The models that you can use for this. Um, so if you remember in the previous session, you have classic DU and modern DU. And now you have the generative extraction. It will be in the next session, but classic DU is deployed in AA Center, which can which is like they're slowly deprecating, right? And it can be used in standalone deployment, right? So that's why in intelligent OCR activities package, that's supported there. But in document understanding activities package, you can only use, if I recall, you can only use modern DU projects, modern DU document understanding deployments, right? So that's why it's only in Automation Suite, which you can deploy modern DU, and Automation Cloud, which is of course cloud first. So all the features are there. So that's document understanding package in terms of model deployment, right? And it's best suited for not only RPA developers but also once we're starting to develop a simple document understanding process, so citizen developers as well, right? So it can be used in Studio Web or Studio Desktop. Do you still have Studio X? I guess, yeah, Studio X, right? So is Studio this Mason will show you this in a shortly how what this document understanding activities package are, and it's very easy to use. It's not the step by step activity that you saw in the previous slide. It's all compact or compressed in one activity. Um, the digitization, the extraction, so that makes it much easier to use, but it's less flexible, right? Because there's one activity versus multiple step activity, right? So that's the drawback. Although it's very easy to use, very easy to build in let's say even 5-10 minutes, you can build a DU process in Studio Web. So that's the only drawback is you're not flexible, which digitizer to use, which classifier if you want to do validation as well for the classification step. So those are the things that you cannot do with this approach, right? So as I said, the drawback with intelligent OCR activities package is it's a bit higher learning curve because you have to make sure that you are aware what the specific steps are in document understanding framework, right? And you have to configure each and every activity and pass each argument. So you have the taxonomy, the DOM, the text, the classification results, the extraction results. And use case is if you have existing automation relying on which DU activities is impossible, right? Because you have a very complex use case. So while on the other hand, compared to intelligent OCR, the drawback, oh sorry, for the DU activities package, there are missing features. Since again, it's not it's easy to use, but it's not that flexible. So you don't have a splitting, you don't have business rules, you cannot fine-tune models, and you cannot combine multiple extraction for a document type, right? I will show you later that particular feature. And use this package if you're just getting started with document understanding that relies on modern DU models, generative capabilities, and out-of-the-box specialized models, right? Okay, so now let's cover our first demo, which we will show the document understanding activities package through the lens of Studio Web using a simple extraction process. And the floor is yours, Mason. Uh,
Yeah,
once
absolutely.
you're ready. Yep.
Let me share my screen. Make sure that that shows up. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Sweet. So We're in Studio Web right now. We're going to look at the DU activities that are available here. I have two workflows that I'm going to walk you guys through. One of those is with a single file and an extraction, and then what to do to handle multiple files in kind of the classic DU performer methodology. So this one, I'm pulling a file from my Google Drive. It's a like a license. It's a state license, so like a driver's license. And I'm just getting that from Google Drive. It's just saved up there. The DU activities, you'll find them under Document Understanding. So when you go to add an activity, they're all under here. It's alphabetically sorted. So you're going to see this bright blue D, that's Document Understanding. Inside of this, there are a lot of different activities. The ones that we're going to be working with are classifying and extraction. And then I'll show you kind of how the classification validation tasks work as well. So there you can create actions in Action Center to verify the results of your classification and extraction. So with this workflow, we'll look at those. So we'll start by classifying the document, and that's just with this classify document activity. In Studio Web, this activity is going to take a file. So that's going to be an iResource or iLocal resource type, and you put that in the input here. And you can use the predefined document understanding models or generative predefined. We're going to use predefined for this one, or you can create your own classifiers. Those are with the custom experience. I'm not going to walk through that. We're just going to use the out of the box today. And you can see down here, there's a little message that says, what are the supported document types for this? With your classifier, you are expecting it can be any document type, right? So you don't have to have it trained for one individual document type. You want you want to have multiple document types available to you. And so when you create your classifier, you want to be able to include all of the documents that you're expecting to come into this pipeline. Out of the classifier, we get a variable called document data, and I'll explore that a little bit more. So when we're using document data, there are specific fields in there that are very useful. And in our last session, we actually talked about those a little bit. But the big one is the document type that comes out of the classifier, right? So when we're looking at the document data, I might have to create a variable there. Give me a second. I'm going to create a variable to hold this. So I'm just going to call it document data there. There we go. So you can see we have like file details down here. We can see document metadata. So there's a lot of information coming in about this document. We have an extension, name, size, and bytes. We also have the document type. With the classifier, the document type is the important part. So this is going to be the type on your documents. This can be defined in your taxonomy in Studio Desktop. This can be defined in your custom models, or it could be the out-of-the-box models like this one. This one should come through as an ID. We're going to print that off with a log. So we're going to take the name, and then we're also going to take the display name. Kind of look at those two variables inside of this. There's also a confidence, and so this is a percentage of how confident the classifier is on this type of document, right? And the reason you would use your confidence, in a lot of document understanding pipelines, you're going to set like a threshold on your confidence. If it's 98, 95% certain, you might say, let's just go ahead and automatically process this document. Let's hand it off to the RPA bot with the data that's extracted and classified. Because we're pretty sure that it's right. But if it has a lower confidence, maybe this document doesn't fit the norm for the type of structure that we're looking for. It might be like 60% confident. That's an indicator that some of the fields may even be wrong or not extracted at all for an extractor or a classifier. It might look like two different documents. that is one of the cases where we'd go with human in the loop. And so you could set your pipeline up to hand that off to a human through Action Center and validate the results of either your extraction or your classification. So we're just going to run this one with the classifier and get that log message that gets the document type and everything out of it. Second. Might actually help if I showed you guys the document, right? So I pulled a sample. Can everybody see this part of my screen? This window that came up? Am I
Yes,
only
yes,
sharing
Mason.
mode?
Yep,
Okay, cool.
yep.
So this is the document that's going in, right? We have, this is a sample Pennsylvania commercial driver's license. Um, so that's coming in from Google Drive, and that's going straight into the classified document activity, which is running now. And then we log a message off, and so we get a document type of ID cards. So that name is the technical name for it, right? That is ID underscore cards, right? And then the display name is the friendly name. So if you need to give a display name that's friendly, it's going to be under display name. It was 99.8% confident, so it's very confident that that is an ID card, right? And then something that we can do once we have the classification done is then start to extract data from that. So this is where you're starting to get fields out of your document. So we're going to go with the extract document data activity right after this. We are going to pass in the same file, so the file that we got from Gmail in this case. Go with a predefined document understanding project. And then this is where we can choose our extractor. Now, extractors, you can create your own, or there's a bunch of out-of-the-box ones here. We're going to use the out-of-the-box ones. And there is one for ID cards. I'm going to have to search for it. There it is. It's not alphabetically ordered. So we're going to use the ID card extractor because we know that this document is an ID card. This one also produces document data, and I'm going to go ahead and create a variable for this one. Just call it document data underscore extraction. And we're going to see how this one is different. So we have our document data for extraction, and we have data underneath of this. This has all of the data that's specific to this extractor, right? So we have a last name and a first name, birthplace, birth date. Each of these fields is specific to the ID card extractor. And you'll see underneath of each field, there's a value, there's a confidence, and then there's an OCR confidence. So we have two confidences now. The first confidence is the document understanding how confident it is on that field itself, on where it pulled it out. It might be, this is a combination of, the text similarity around that area of the document, as well as some of the visual, some of the image qualities of that document. Where is it placed on the document? So that's really just like getting the right field out. The OCR confidence is how confident the OCR is that it read the correct text on the page. So if you have like handwriting or a scanned PDF and there's little artifacts on the image, this OCR confidence will go down because of those. It might get the wrong letter and it says, well, I couldn't really figure out whether this was an R or an N or an M. And so that confidence will decrease with that. And so looking at these two confidences, you kind of have a combination of, did I get the right field and did I get the correct value for that field, right? So those are the two there. We'll pull those out. Sorry, my keyboard broke for a second. Yeah, there we go. And let's use the last name field for both of these actually. And then we will pull the last name field out as well. and see if it's right. And you can see there's still some top level variables or top level fields inside of this. So we still get the document type underneath, and this is going to be more, I'm going to do another demo where we're looping through documents so I can show you kind of how that works. But we also have sub documents underneath of here. So if there are different document types underneath of the classifier, then we get sub documents inside of that, so that we can have document paths on that. And then there's document specific details, and then there will be metadata about it. And you can use all of those in your pipelines to customize what your flow is with your document understanding. Generally, the document understanding document data is the variable that you're interacting with to program your document understanding pipeline, to tell it what to do. And that's the thing that it's going to be making decisions off of. And when you hand your document off to an automated downstream process, you're going to be handing fields in that document data, like the last name from this one, first name, state, address, and things like that. So let's debug this one now that we have the extract document. We're going to classify the document again first, and then we extract the document. See, we got the same results from that extraction, actually the exact same confidence too, or the classification. And then we have a DU confidence of 98.3 and an OCR confidence of 98.9. And the last name was sample. Let's pull up that document. You can see right here, last name sample, right? So it got that correctly. So that's your basic document understanding activities. The next step normally is like injecting human in the loop. So I'll show you what those look like as well, because those are very important to document understanding. Once you're done with classification or extraction, you can then hand those off to a person. And the way that you would normally program that is, let's go here. I would add an if, right? If you want to use your confidence, right, you could say document data confidence, and then you could say like greater than 0.5, right? You want it to be 50% confident. And if it's greater than 0.5, then you could, or actually in this case, we would want less than, right? But if it's less than 50% confident, we could say, I want to hand this off to a person. For this one, I'm going to set it to 1 because we want to trick it into sending that off to a person so that we can see the action. But you can give it whatever confidence and then put it through your wait for classification, validation task, and resume. This is the long-running workflow. So in long-running workflows, the bot actually suspends when we wait on that one. That's right here. So we would create the classification validation task and wait. And then that one would just create it and give us an object back. And then we pass that object into the wait for classification validation task and resume. And then that one would suspend the bot and then resume when it's done. There's also this activity here that's create validation task. So maybe you don't want to suspend your bot and you just want to create that task on the other side, then you can use this activity. We're going to use this one because we don't need to work with the long-running workflows, but typically you would be using the long-running workflows so that you can wait for that task and resume your bot immediately after it's done. So I'm going to give it a name of classification task. I'm going to give it the document data that comes from my classify document. I have an error somewhere. Not sure where. Let me refresh for a second because that error shouldn't be there. Oh, this is the wrong validation task. Sorry. There it is. For this one, we actually have to create a classification validation task, so be careful there. There's two different types of validation tasks. One of those is just validation task, and then the other one is classification validation task. That's for the actual classification. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and debug that. All right. Classifying now. You can see this one's now running because we have less than 100% confidence in that document. So that's what triggered off this one here. It was successful. Now let's go over to Action Center and see what that actually looks like. I have to refresh to get my actions to show up. You'll see I have one unassigned task in Action Center. So I can click on unassigned tasks. It's going to open another window for me. And I can see our classification task now came through. I'm going to assign this to myself. And it's going to come over here into my pending, which means I can now complete the task. And you'll see the classification one's pretty easy, right? You just have to select a document type. For this document type, right, and it came in as ID card, so it's 99% certain. I can see what it classified it as, and it's going to be per page on the document, right? If it notices that there are multiple document types within this, it will classify those and put those into sub-document. We talked about this in the last DU session as well. But say I had a multiple page PDF that I was bringing in, it would be able to classify those sub-documents individually, right? And so there would be one of these items here for each of those, one of these entries. And human in the loop allows us to go in and correct this classification. So I could say, this isn't an ID card, this is a 1040, or this is a 709, and then I could submit. And if I use the wait for validation task and resume, it'll pull that different document type in, and I can resume my workflow with that newly corrected document type. I'm not going to submit this one because we actually didn't. It's not going to feed back to our bot. But if we use the long running workflows, that's when that would kick back off. So those are the base activities. I put together the sample workflow here because I want to show you guys what it would look like if you are doing multiple documents and you wanted to process through a ton of different documents here. So we'd use the classify document. This is now getting a file or folder list. There is a second document that's also in that folder with the first one, and it is a receipt. So it's just a supermarket receipt. And we're going to try to pull the type of receipt with the classification. We're going to use the current item for that in the loop. And then we'll do the same thing that we did last time, where we log the message off with the document type. My fields don't get explored until I create a variable there. It's not pulling in my specific fields. Oh, here we go. So I can loop through those documents, classify each one. We'll show that right now. It's going to pull in 2 different documents and then log those off with the doc type. Our first one is classifying now. Let me stop this one. Got to make sure I pull in the document type name. And let's use the display name for this one because the display name is friendlier. And these activities are available in Studio Desktop as well. And with the new experience, you can also just move this project between Studio Web and Studio Desktop, and they'll be compatible across both projects. These activities are going to correspond to your cross-platform activity packages. With document understanding, that's a pretty good way to go about it, is to use a cross-platform. Because you shouldn't really be doing a whole lot of UI automation inside of your document understanding pipelines. You really want to leave your document understanding pipeline to do the document understanding itself, and then pass that off to downstream processes. Okay, so here we have both document types, right? We got receipts for the second one. We got ID cards for the first one. Now, what do you do in this scenario where you have 2 different document types, right? This is where you could use a switch statement, and you could say, how am I going to handle ID cards? And that's with the ID card extractor, right? So let's say I have document data, document type, display name, right? The first one we're going to say is ID cards. The second one we're going to call it receipts. We're going to use our extract document data activity. We are going to give it the current file. Choose a predefined document understanding project. And this switch case is for ID cards. So we're going to give it ID cards. And we will log. Let's take the address for this one. Let's see what the address looks like. And then for receipts, we would do the same thing, right? extract document data again. We would use the same document variable, choose a predefined model, and then we're looking for receipts. Give it receipts. And let's log the total amount for this one. And then for kind of an enterprise level document understanding pipeline where you're classifying multiple documents in a PDF, you could nest this in another for loop, and you could go through the sub-documents inside of your classification and extract each of those individual sub-documents. So that would be kind of the full thing. I didn't put together an example where both of those are in a PDF, but that's what you would do to handle that. You'd get all the documents from the classification and then loop through those with extraction. So we got our ID card, we got our address off the ID card, and then we got our receipt and we got our total amount off of that one. I'm realizing I didn't show you guys the extract document data validation task, so let's look at that one too. Are there any questions so far in the chat?
Mason or Russ, I don't see any questions in the chat, but I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Before classification or during classification, um, should we also do some kind of document pre-processing where we exclude unnecessary pages or we exclude pages that are empty, etc.? So is that an inbuilt capability, or can we do that separate? Do we have to do that separately?
You're gonna have to define some custom logic to do that. I don't think out of the box, Russell, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think out of the box that DU detects blank pages and takes those out. Do you know, Russell, if it does that?
No, it does not. But you can yes, definitely that's a separate workflow that you need to customize depending on the document types that you're handling. And there are already models that you can train in modern DU that can split as well. These documents, and you can possibly train nuance pages and all. So you can have that you can use that as part of classification as well, right? Reading out those documents. But yes, as Nation mentioned, it pre-processing, preparing the document needs to be a separate workflow, right? So yeah, we can discuss more as well on the like after this particular demo on the DU framework, which you can incorporate all of these additional validations.
Yeah.
Sounds
And then
good.
obviously your interest there is to conserve your DU units that you're using, your AI units
Mm,
for DU.
yep.
Classification is a little bit less costly to run per page. What you could do is you could have a document type that you don't use, or like a default document type in your classification taxonomy. This is what we did at TQL when I was there. If we detected a page that didn't fit our document type and we didn't want to process, we directed our business teams to correct those and classify those pages under that default document type. So if it was a blank page, we would put it under the default document type, and then that wouldn't go into the extractor because the extractor is the one that costs an AI unit per page. And so you want to be careful putting a bunch of pages into that one. And so we could handle that in the classification validation loop when we had documents that we didn't want to extract. And so we would give extraction only the pages that we knew we wanted to take action on. And you could use that to even filter out documents that you aren't going to be extracting or making decisioning on as well, not just for blank pages and everything.
Got it. Makes sense. I think That's a common question that I get from customers and developers. So thanks for clarifying that. So create a new document type and then ignore that as part of your extraction.
Yeah, that does work, but you're still going to read those pages in the classification. So if you want to be fully efficient with it, you could use like the OCR PDF activities and do that per page. And then if you wanted to catch blank pages, the ones that have no results, you could use those to split the PDFs. There's several ways that you can go about it.
Got it. Thank you. Thanks, Mason. Thanks, Russ.
Yeah, and I also wanted to show the extraction task because this one looks a little bit different than the classification task, as you can imagine. So I'm going to pull this activity in to get the document data for the extraction task, and then run this pipeline one more time and show you guys what the extraction task looks like. The classification task is cool, but in my opinion, the extraction action center task is way cooler because you get to see the little boxes that highlight certain parts of the document. It's just more visually appealing, and it's more interactive. But as you can imagine, it's extracting things off the page, so it has to show you where it's getting that, and then also display the text that it's pulling. All right, so we created our action center tasks. I'm gonna refresh this again. We have 2 unassigned tasks. Going over here, I am going to take the extraction task this time, assign it to myself. And now you will see for extraction, it gives you each field that it pulled. It also has the document type up top. This is locked in now, so you can't change the document type. And it's going to say 100% confident. The reason is just because it's using the ID card extractor. So it's telling the user, hey, we extracted this as an ID card, just to give them feedback. The user can go in here and check each one, say, hey, yeah, this is correct for this. They can also correct the text individually, right? They can say, okay, maybe the OCR messed up, right? And it doesn't quite get the letters correctly. They can correct the specific text on that, right? They can mark it as missing. If it's not in the document at all, then they can go over here and mark it as missing from the document. That just means that that data didn't come through. In those cases, you might have a business rule that you need that, right? And when you hand it off to your downstream process, you might maybe this is what we did in an early DU project that I was a part of. Every document that we had, we only were using one document type, but you could do this for multiple document types. We had a queue that corresponded to that document type, and the specific data that came into those queue items corresponded to the fields that we pulled from those document types. And then our RPA process, we had a performer on the back end that was looping through those queue items and then using the data from the extraction to complete that that downstream process. And so if it detected that there was a field missing, and this happened on the RPA process, not in the document understanding process, and you could do it in either end, but we did it in the downstream RPA process. That way, when it detected that one of those fields was missing, right, it could go back to the queue and report that queue item as a business rule exception. And so we had visibility into when fields were missing on the document. And we could do the same thing for like addresses. You can validate addresses to make sure that they're a real address, and things like that. All right. I think I don't remember off the top of my head if there's a way to do this. I don't think so. Yeah, here we go. So see, these two are missing here. Issued place, not extracted, authority, not extracted. If I wanted to extract that, I could click the plus here, right? And then I could click, well, first I have to click a field on here. So I could take this sample and assign it to this one, right? And so it's going to intelligently figure out, like, these are the fields that I extracted, right? You can hover over them. You can highlight multiple, and it knows. And you can take those and assign those to the ones that are not extracted. You can go in certain ones like dates, addresses, and different fields that are comprised of multiple values and change those individual values as well, and correct those. Or you can just correct it on the top line. And then once they submit that, then it's completed. We can also see, is this document an exception? And you can report it back as an exception within the pipeline itself. And then up top, we also have the confidence level for extraction. We can set that to OCR, so we get an OCR confidence per field, right? And so we are getting the confidence of the OCR versus just the extraction. And that's basically all I have, Russell, to demo out document understanding.
Yeah, awesome. That's thanks for that pretty elaborate demo. Clear and detailed. So yeah, so thanks, Mason. Let me just pull up the screen right now and go to the next part, which is the studio, right? The studio desktop approach, where you use the intelligent OCR package, and I'll point out the differences, since Mason has showed what the experience is in Studio Web for building simple to even medium type of DU processes, right? What's the difference between in building in Studio Desktop, right? And going back to here, right? So what Mason showed is this document understanding activities package, right? And what I'm going to show is the intelligent OCR activities package. Although in Studio Desktop, you can use either of this, right? But before I go into the Studio IDE, both of this, Studio Desktop and Studio Web, they have you can build from a template as well, right? For Studio Web, you can actually, so what Nation showed is he went in Studio Web and then created a project from here to build that document understanding project. If you wanna do a quick start, right? You wanna test something, and if you wanna do a quick start, then you can actually go directly to instead of Studio Web, you can go directly to Document Understanding, and this is where you like train your models and all, modern DU and all. But I wanna point this quick start in Studio, right? And then you just drag and drop your sample files right here. Let's say you have invoices right here. You can just drag and drop one of them, either PDF or whatnot. And then it will automatically detect the document type. So we're still in Studio Web. I just want to show you this template right here that can help you build the structure of your workflow. And then it will detect automatically, in this case, invoice, and then you can say create workflow, and then it will create a Studio Web project for you. The one that Mason showed step by step. So it includes those activities as well. Not all, but you have the extract document data, you have the validate document data. It doesn't have the classify, but you can like customize it as per your use case, right? But you have already a pretty structured flow here, where it uses the storage bucket to host the file that you downloaded, that you uploaded, and it will do all the stuff, right? So that's Studio Web using Document Understanding Activities package, right? Now, when you use Studio Desktop, so I'll show you next. So let's say you have a highly complex process for document understanding where you require pre-validation, post extraction validation, all those type of checks in each of the stages, right? So let's take a look at this particular process itself. So you have it you can also follow what your typical RPA workflow that you're doing. You already have dispatcher and performer type of scenario, right? So you have a dispatcher where it downloads attachments to local drive, get all files from local drive for processing, and upload it as queue items, right? Now, instead of just an RPA workflow where you use RE framework, in this case, you will use DU framework, right? You have a DU framework template in Studio that you can use to fetch a file from orchestrator, a queue item, digitize them. So this is one difference. So in the intelligent OCR package, you have digitize, right? But in document understanding activities package, you don't have digitize. In here, you can select your own OCR, your different OCR if you have an OCR of your own that you use. You can freely use other OCR, whichever you think is best for that particular document. And then classify, Mason showed as well. So you have classify scope here, and then you have validate, and then extract, and then so this is essentially the performer part of your process, and then you have you can incorporate like post processing as well within the workflow. Since you're using Studio Desktop, you can be much more flexible, right? So the dispatcher, you can just uh, make it really simple. Like even just this one, a very simple for each workflow, and then it will go through this list of files, right? And then you have your queue, and then you can just run this um, process, and then it will fill up your queue. This dispatcher will run, let's say, like multiple times a day or scheduled or event based. Once a new email comes in, it will dispatch it, download the file, dispatch it to the queue so that your queue will be filled up like so this is when you go to orchestrator, right? It will dispatch all the files that you need to process for your DU into this particular queue that was set up right here, right? So you have your queue filled up. Now you want to build your performer, in this case, which will be a DU performer, right? So I'll show you the different component first, then I'll show you the DU framework template that you can use for this, right? So now that you have your files in the queue, right? So you're gonna create, let me just create a new sequence here. I won't go over to like step by step. I'll go step by step, but not as detailed as Mason already have shown you. Um, I'll just show you the difference on the activities. As you can see here, I have intelligent OCR activities, right? Um, and what the activity packages look like. Oh, hold on. It's a bit, the naming is a bit confusing because the category is like, of course, it's document understanding, but this is intelligent OCR activity package, right? So the one that Mason showed, let me just to quickly point out the difference here. If you open the Studio Web project that Mason showed in earlier in Studio Desktop, if you export that, these are the activities that you will be seeing. Hold on. Okay. So just want to differentiate this one. So, but it's not advisable to use both in the same project, as it may break some dependencies. But just for the sake of showing you the difference between the two, I'm showing this. Okay, it's taking a bit more time than expected. I think just a couple more seconds right here. Okay, well, that takes. Okay, so while that loads, just see over here tabs we have. So if you develop using DU framework, so you can be able to redefine or customize the taxonomy as well. So taxonomy is essentially the metadata that you want to that you want to extract out of the document. Let's say in an invoice, you need the invoice number, you need the line items, you need the amount. So that's the taxonomy, right? If you use a like a pre-trained model, right? It has already a base taxonomy that is already pre-trained with, right? In Studio Web, just like what Mason showed, it already creates the taxonomy automatically based on the model that you use, right? But in document understanding, you have to create that taxonomy from scratch. You can update or add new document type, like new fields on top of what the or is as a base taxonomy. You if you want, you can delete fields, right? um so that's taxonomy, right? You can fully modify the taxonomy that you want to extract. And then as I mentioned, you can digitize documents as well and choose your own OCR. You can configure classifiers. You can combine classifiers together without using an if else. Like you can combine classifiers, and the same way with the extractors. You don't have to use a switch statement to extract from receipts, to extract from invoice, to extract from other type of document. You don't have to do a switch statement, because you can combine in one extraction scope the different document types, and then you can configure which field go into which extractor, right? And then you can also configure human validation and retraining features as well, right? Um, so you have these are the steps. Again, it's much more much more than what you have on the Studio Web document understanding package. So you have the load taxonomy, you have the digitize. So these are not in the document understanding package. You have classify as well. This is in the other package. You have data extraction scope, where you can combine multiple extractor. You have a classification station and validation. So this is the validation that that Mason showed, both for classification and validation as well. So that's similar. You have train classifier scope and train extractor, so that once the human validate, it will feed back to the training set or the training data set, and then can retrain, and then export extraction result as well, right? So so let me see if it's completed. Should be okay. So I installed both just to differentiate right here. So yeah, so this is what you'll see, right? So this document understanding right here, this is the intelligent OCR package. So you have the classified document scope, digitized document, you have the different types of classifier right here, and then you have the extractors as well. Well, the document understanding package, that this is the one that Mason showed. So you have classified document. So these are more compact type of activities, and you don't see here the digitize. You don't see here the load taxonomy. So that's the difference in terms of the packages. Um, um, and this one, intelligent OCR, you can only use in Studio desktop, as you can see here, right? So let me just put the step by step. If you're building a document understanding using Studio. So first you load taxonomy, then you digitize. So taxonomy is coming from whatever taxonomy you have in the taxonomy manager. This is the one that I mentioned, that you can define different document types and its fields, right? And you can add update fields. If you don't have anything here, then you can add new document type. But for example, this one is I already have the invoice taxonomy here, and then I added the invoice number, date, due date, items, and total. So this is a taxonomy. You define based on the requirement what are the different fields that you need. Let's say I also need another field right here that's not here. I can add let's say a new field or whatever field that I want to add, and this is a text. Then click save, and then so that's taxonomy, right? And if you want to add new document type, you can create a new document type, and then just for sake of it, just add a field one. So that's how you add a new document type, right? You can create a structure as well, right? So that's a taxonomy manager. So what a taxonomy manager does is you can define all those fields and document type. And then you can assign it in a variable right here that you can pass towards this the next set of steps, right? So input for the digitized document, you need the document path, and it outputs document text and document object model, which you need to use downstream. So we want to create this variables, and then you can select your document, and then the next step is classify, right? So this is where you can use the classified document scope. And this is why I mentioned that you can combine different types of classifier. If you want to use generative classifier, if you want to use intelligent keyword classifier, or a combination of a machine learning classifier, right? So this is, and then you can specify which endpoint. There are pre-trained endpoint here that you can refer to in the documentation. Not here. So if you go to UiPath public endpoints, you can see public endpoints here, which you can use for both extraction and classification, right? In here. So you can use that in your classification, and then you can get the capabilities. So that's one approach. Or you can use this ML skill, right? ML skill is you deploy in AI center or modern DU modern DU projects, so you can get those capabilities, right? And then so that's machine learning classifier, right? You can use pre-trained classification model, or like using endpoint or ML skill you deployed in your modern DU or classic DU, or intelligent keyword classifier. So it's keyword based, so you can train it by providing the learning file. You can manage learning and add upload documents right here. It will automatically create a learning file right here, and you can upload documents so that it can based on the documents you uploaded, it will gather keywords. Anyways, since we have almost out of time, I won't show that. But now, once you configured all your classifier, right? So generative classifier, let's leave that up to the next session. So it's just prompting, setting up the different type of document, right? And then prompting or describing each document so that the generative AI can classify those, and then you can configure the classifier here as well, right? So for, let's say, for invoice, I want to use all of three, whichever one has well, so this is from left to right, right? If the generative classifier returns something, uh, then it will use this. But if it's, let's say I put here something like 50%, right? Minimum confidence. If the generative classifier returns 49% confidence, then it will use intelligent keyword classifier. And since it's 0%, um, unless it didn't return anything, it will use this intelligent keyword classifier, right? So it's from left to right, right? If you've ticked all of this. For the new document type, let's say I only want to use machine learning. I've trained something, so that's how you can combine multiple classifier for this for your projects using classify extraction scope. And then the output of this is the classification results, which is a enumeration of classification depending on if your document has multiple document types returned. So you can then either, depending on the confidence as well, you can add a validation, right? So you can similar to what Mason has showed, you can create document classification action, and then you can add a if else statement here, but you don't have to worry about that. I'm just showing you step by step, and then next I'll show you the DU framework template, which you don't have to do all of this. You just need to define your taxonomy, and the rest of the stuff, all the framework components are there, and just need to fill up the different document activities in the template. And then after the validation, you have the data extraction scope, which this is the where you put the extractors, right? So similar to the classification scope, in here you can also add multiple multiple document extractor, right? So in here you have generative classifier, keyword based class, no, not that one, extractor. You have form extractor, which is a rule based extractor, generative extractor, which is a generative AI based. You have machine learning extractor, which is smart to specialized AI. So this is the main thing, right? So similarly, you can use an endpoint. using the public endpoint pre-trained, let's say invoice or PO, or you can choose from your trained skill, right? In classic or modern DU, right? And then of course you have to fill all this up, the input, the text, the DOM. This is coming from the digitized document. Classification result coming from the classification, taxonomy coming from the load taxonomy. So you have to fill all this up, right? And then you have trainers here as well after the um, extraction. You want to retrain it, um, or let's say uh, after the validation. So there's also validation here for this extraction. After the validation, you have the trainer. So trainer is the one that trains your either classifier model or the extractor model, right? So you have the trainer here, right? So that's the step by step, right? So you load the taxonomy, you create the taxonomy, then you load the taxonomy, then you digitize the document, then you classify the document, and then you extract. You can combine extraction, you can combine classification as well. You can combine different types of classification, right? So as well, and then extractor. Let's say you have multiple document here. Let's say multiple document type. Yeah, I can use two machine learning extractor here, right? One for PO model and one for invoice, and then you can configure extractor here, which one you will use for invoice, which one you will use for PO, right? So that's how you configure this. And yeah, I just want to quickly show you the DU framework template, which you don't have to build this and drag and drop each of this activity. So there's a DU framework template right here. If you go to the start page, you can use document understanding process. Document understanding process is the DU framework template that you can use for like an RE framework, but for document understanding related process. Um, and it's built with all this exception handling, with all this ingestion mechanism to get the transaction, and then it has all the steps from loading taxonomy to digitizing to validating to classifying to validating then extracting. It has all those different steps, and you can configure the different let's say you have a pre-classification workflow that you built for other project. You can pull those in here, and if you have specific rules that you need to enforce after the extraction, you have a specific workflow that you can update here or edit to enforce those business rule checks, right? So it's essentially really an elaborate framework that you can use. Hold on, it's not letting me. Um, or let me see if I open something here. So let's see which opens first. Okay, so now, so this is when you create a DU project. So you have this framework file right here. If you open the main workflow, so you already have the main um flow chart here will show. So this is the DU process. So it initializes from the queue. It initializes all settings, get transaction item from the queue if it's queue based, and then it performs digitize, classify. So each of these on its own are workflows that leverages um, like sub workflows that are pre-templated and leverages the activity in the DU framework or the intelligent OCR package, right? So you have digitize, you have classify, um, here. So you can just drag and drop additional classifiers that you have, and then it's already tied to the config file. And then you have business rule validation workflow that you can customize here after the classification. Let's say you want to do some validation, custom validation here. So this is a templated for that, right? Um, and then you have a train classifier here as well, which is optional, but it's part of the framework. And you have extract workflow right here, which uses the extraction scope. And then you have the extraction business rule, similar to the classification business rule. You can customize after extraction what are the things that you need to you want to validate. And then you have the train extractors, and then you export, right? So again, similar to RE framework, there are placeholders that workflows that you can customize, and you just need to really define your taxonomy, and then set up your classifiers and extractors based on the model that you have. And then if you have any business rules, whether it's classification or extraction, you can implement here, right? You can customize this one. And yeah, so usually this is where what we use when we develop enterprise or production grade DU processes, especially if it's highly complex process, right? So you train your model or select from the pre-trained model, then create a DU framework project from this template, and then fill up the the classifiers, the digitizers and extractors, and then yeah, you can test it, right? So um that's what this template is for. Okay, sorry about that. I know we only have 2 minutes left for all other things and questions, if any. So if you wanna, so Diana, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, really excellent job going through that, because I think, you have if you can't ask your questions right this second, this is a very detailed explanation, and the recording will be available tomorrow. And then you can always ask any questions you have on our Fusion site. So if anybody has any quick questions they'd like to ask before we close for today, just let us go ahead and open up your mic and ask it. But I think that Lagish did a really good job of keeping up with most of the questions, Russell.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Lucas.
Anybody have any they'd like to ask real quick? Or Lagish, do you have anything that you want clarification on?
No, I think I'm good, Diana.
Okay. Well, I think we're good for today. We'll see you guys on Wednesday. We're really excited about this, and you'll learn more then. So take care, everybody. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.